Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome Bridger Frederick here. Now, this guy's worn many hats, so I'm going to let him explain all this stuff. So let's kick this off right. Bridger, tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, so for someone that had never met me before, a little kind of snapshot of my life. I was born in Idaho and lived in kind of an agricultural area. I lived in the suburbs, really next to an agricultural area, and the suburbs was a living nightmare for me. All I wanted to do was escape to the wild and adventure. I just didn't understand why I had to go to school. I thought it was weird just living in these cookie cutter houses and everyone has nice, neat lawns. It was almost like a 10-year psychosis for me. I just thought it was very strange. And that perpetuated a dream of traveling around the world. And I always thought I would leave by the time I was 16, and involvement in drugs and just not, and being from an insulated community and not really knowing how to get out or where to go, it took me a while longer than that to kind of break free. I ended up running a construction company down in California for a little while at the age of about 19, 20, and was just working 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, and realized that I was going to have to take on loans and a lot more responsibility. And this was going to be my life forever, really, if I wanted to graduate to the next level. And I was got stuck in traffic one day for about 6 hours and just had a deep realization that my 80-year-old self, what they would want me to do right now. And when I got to my hotel where I was heading, I booked a one-way ticket to Australia for me and one of my closest friends, and that was kind of the catalyst for I ended up traveling the world for a few years after that.
Now, if I read correctly, you had taken your money and kind of went to Vegas and blew that all kind of the garbage, right?
Yeah, so about a month or two, I bought the ticket probably in November, and we were set to leave in February. Sometime in December, uh, my friend and I went to Vegas for 10 days for the National Finals Rodeo, which was about, 8 days longer than you need to spend in Vegas, and ended up blowing most of the money we had saved up from for the trip there, and then pretty much spent the rest of it by the time we were actually taking off in the middle of February. And I think we landed in Australia with like $2,200, maybe $2,300 between us.
Wow. Now, you're kind of like me, wandering from one job to the next. I never knew what I wanted to do in life. I mean, I started out going to college, but I blew that. I just quit going and wasted all that money trying to find my way. Kind of go through your timeline because I've read you've taken on quite a few jobs.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was young, when I was 12, 13, I'd move sprinkler pipes and do agricultural work. I would buck hay, do odd jobs and projects for people, you know, anything that you can do on a farm, build fences, things like that. I worked at a horse ranch for a bit at the age of 16. It was a hunter jumper dressage horse barn more than a horse ranch, but I just did maintenance and took care of the horses, and anything that needed done, I did it. And then I worked at a vineyard for a while and was thought I was going to be a viticulturist, and then broke up with the daughter of the owner of that vineyard and kind of went that went wayside. I started doing concrete and construction while I was in college simultaneously. Then ended up starting that siding company in California. did odd jobs down in, I dropped out of college at that point. I was studying business and just thought, why don't I start a business rather than talk about other people who did it? And then in Australia, I just did odd jobs. I sold pub crawl tickets. I worked at bars, worked doing landscaping, and worked at restaurants, things like that. And then got back to America and was about 4 years later was framing houses and couldn't get ahead. I was framing houses, working and also working nights at a ski mountain, just plowing snow and grooming the runs. And I just couldn't get ahead. I felt like I was getting crushed. I was working sometimes all the way through 24 hours a day. I mean, an 8 hour shift and then a 16 hour or an 8 hour shift, and then wake up after an hour or two and start work at 3 in the morning and just go at it again, plowing snow and doing other stuff. And I just couldn't get ahead. And I knew that my dream was to own a large piece of property and bring my family, friends, people I love together in one place to grow my own food. And just that was always my calling. I wanted to bring people together into the wild. And the only way I can imagine being able to own a piece of property like that and pay the taxes and the mortgage and everything on it was with cattle. So I went into business with a buddy of mine who ran a cattle company. He's actually the kid that came to Australia with me. He left after a few weeks, came back and started a large cattle company. And that was going to be what I did for the rest of my life. I mean, I wanted to build a mini multi-million-dollar direct consumer meat brand, but about 2 years into that, I was down in La Junta, Colorado, buying some buying some cattle and had a basically a meltdown and realized this wasn't what I was supposed to be doing with my life. I was supposed to be doing something creative. I traveled the world and been, to 10, 15, probably about 15 to 18 different countries at that time. And knew that I was supposed to be doing something creative and beautiful and spreading love and bringing people into the wild and into the wilderness. And I had this panic attack basically and didn't and knew this was I wasn't supposed to be, in the industrial cattle industry. And the next day went back up to Greeley, Colorado, where I was living, and I loaded a big truck of Longhorns that morning, lost my temper, and just decided deep inside my heart with every fiber of my being that it doesn't matter, that I don't want to do this. I'm not going to quit anything again. I'm going to do this until I'm worth $100 million. I'm not stopping until I have. I just it was this immense feeling of just greed and that I was never going to be stopped in this path for whatever reason. And 12 hours later, I flipped my truck through a telephone pole going 85 miles per hour and got a spinal cord injury and was pretty immediately. I guess there was something that could change the trajectory.
I saw the pictures of your surgery. That's gruesome.
Yep, I broke my back and I think they said 18 definite fractures, three major displacements, a spinal cord injury at T10, and yeah, I had to have major muscle and spinal column reconstructive surgery.
So how's that affecting you right now? Are you able to still get around pretty easy, or is it just,
I'm in a wheelchair. I'm T10 paraplegic, spinal cord
oh
injury.
man.
Um, yeah, and so it's obviously been the most significant thing that's ever happened in my life. It was 4 years ago now, a little over 4 years ago. November 2019 is when the accident happened. And obviously, it's like two different lives before and after. It's like um, a whole new life. And it was extremely difficult for basically the first 2.5 years, and it's never become easy, but it's definitely the human bodies and the human mind is amazing. Eventually, things just become normal.
The crazy thing is when I meet someone that's gone through something like you have. Now, I didn't go through an accident. I actually developed a spinal disease. And we go through so much, depression. I don't know if you suffer depression, anxiety, that kind of thing like I do, but that's crippling in itself. And I don't know what all you've been through as far as personally, other than what you've shared. But people like us who should probably just give up, for some reason, we want to help other people and try to build them up. That's why I started the show. And I want you to kind of go a little bit more into your dreams because what I read, it sounds like you really, really want to help folks.
Yeah, so the most significant realization of after being injured
Hmm.
was once I was in the hospital for 3 months. Once I was released from the hospital, I had a litany of problems. I had a spinal infection. My whole body was destroyed. I'd broken every rib on the right side of my body, uh, and was just coming to terms with a level of pain I didn't know was possible or existed 24/7, all the time, just unrelenting, constant pain. And I just, prior to this happening to me, I had no idea that this amount of suffering was even humanly possible. I didn't know that it was possible to experience that much pain, suffering, and just difficulty ongoing with no relief, seemingly what felt like it was going to be forever. I couldn't see any end to it. And it was hard, but there was this period of time for a couple of weeks where I would just sit and sob, not even because of what I was looking at or because of the actual pain. I was just shocked that I'd been so ungrateful and went through life, and there was this suffering out there in the world. I didn't, and my heart just broke for all of the people in the world that this was life for them. I mean, it was just really eye opening and mind blowing that it was even possible that life could be denigrated to this level and you still survive, and that it was just going to keep being this difficult for the foreseeable future. And I went through extreme periods of depression, anxiety, hopelessness, and it was by and far the hardest thing I could ever do. But eventually, it when something that serious is happening, it just brings you down to the anything health. It doesn't even have to be that serious. Anything where your health and your future survival is compromised for a long period of time, and you really don't know if you're going to make it or how long you're going to make it. You just get to the base level of who you really are, what is really important in life, what means the most, and eventually, I think we all come to the conclusion that love and making other people happy and sharing joy with people you love and supporting and caring and serving other people is the only thing that brings true relief to our suffering, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. The only way that you can get true relief is by sacrificing and serving others. And uh, I don't think I would have gotten there myself unless I just was in pure, hell and wanted to find a way to escape. And that's the only door out.
Tell me a little bit about your book.
So I wrote two books last year. I was working editing. I skipped, I guess I never got to this, but I was working editing videos for a real estate agent. It was like the first actual job I'd had since being paralyzed. And it was just, I mean, it was so weird just putting on an act and putting on a button-up shirt, a nice collared long sleeve shirt and everything, and going in to this real estate office. And real estate's kind of a fake world. You have to appease everyone. And it was just really hard and difficult for me. And I just had this intense anxiety all the time. Like I just knew something had to happen, something had to change, something had to come out of me. And one day I quit and went to a cigar bar and was sitting there, and some guy I spoke to, some guy probably in his late 60s, we talked for a while. He was really smart dude, had clearly been very successful in life, and he's like, you ought to write a book. So I went home that night, started writing a book. I wrote a memoir. It took me about a month. It was just a chronicle. It was really long and probably not that sensical, but it was my whole life packaged in one. But it was like 225,000 words long. And all of a sudden I realized, like, hey, I can do this. I can write a book. Like, it's not, yeah, I did this in a month or so. And so I set out to write a fiction novel and wrote a science fiction novel. And I'm just in the process of editing it right now.
Was something about what happened to us to where our lives were kind of brought to a halt to I guess what I'm leading up to is it finally opened my eyes up to what I want to do in life versus what I had to do in life. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it just, for me, it just continually brings into focus what's important. I can't get led astray for too long to where I'm just trading time for a wage with no other plan or end in sight, because I know how short it is now. Before, it felt like I had forever. And when you get your health taken away from you, I mean, you realize really quickly that that's the most important thing in the world. And so you can't be healthy and work at something you hate for 50, 60, 70 hours a week. So it doesn't allow me to be out of balance for as long. Whereas before, I just put my head down and grind towards money and tell myself this is what I have to do. And I'm not saying that that's not still a part of life and that it's something that's always going to be a part of reality, but it makes me look in the mirror and question myself every morning, like, are you happy with what you're about to do? And if the answer is no, that doesn't mean I get to just not go do it. It just means that I need to start deviating in uh, in a direction where I can wake up and be excited for what has to be done.
The weird thing about it, at least for me, was before I couldn't wait for life to end. And now that I'm in the situation that I'm in, probably want to live more now than I did back then.
I'm the happiest I've ever been right now, and all of my most intense joy and least amount of anxiety has been post spinal cord injury. And I didn't think that was going to be the reality at all for those first few months or even years. I thought I would never be as happy as I was before. But I guess we can only experience emotions in direct correlation with the opposite side of that. I don't know if that made sense, but we can only experience as much joy as we have misery. I think it's a scale that if you tip the misery far enough, now your joy scale can be tipped farther back in the other direction.
Other folks would look at what we're going through and say, gosh, that I'm glad that's not happening to me, but I found this to be a blessing in disguise. Is that strange?
I mean, it isn't strange now, but when I heard people say that when I first got injured, I thought it was just their way of, I don't know, feeling better about it or being okay with what happened or some sort of coping mechanism. But now I see it as the best thing that ever happened to me. It's terrifying to me to imagine where my life would be had that not happened. I don't even want to fathom it just because I was living so untrue to myself and to what I was just on such a dark path, just blinded by greed, obsessed with money. I lost all my values and morals that are most important to me, my whole trajectory. If I was still on that path, I mean, the worst case scenario is that spinal cord injury never happened to me. And I realize all the stuff that I'm talking about now when I'm 70 or when I'm 85 and it's gone. The opportunity's gone.
It's funny that I take better care of myself now than I did before. And it's also, I feel like I'm getting closer to God.
Yeah, I just, the first thing that, the moment that I got in the accident. I didn't get knocked unconscious or anything. And like the first moment, I thought my legs got cut off or something because I couldn't feel my legs. And I was sitting there, I couldn't believe it had just happened. And I had a direct feeling or connection with God of like almost this humorous moment of like you had sealed inside your heart that there was nothing that could stop you from this path. And, you know, it was like almost a laughable moment of like, here's the thing that can stop you. You forgot about me. You disconnected from your source, from, you know, the creative, beautiful place of love that we all come from, however you want to explain it. And you disconnected from that. And this is the gift. It's not even the punishment. This is the gift of reconnection that I'm giving you. It just had to be pretty brutal because you're stubborn and not open minded.
Well, back to your dream, you were saying that you wanted a place where both animals and people could, I guess, get the that rehab, that some kind of fulfillment. What were you going to call it?
I don't know. I've basically dreamed of the same thing since I was 16 years old. I just wanted property. I wanted wild, mountainous property, and I wanted to be surrounded by people I loved. And I'm obsessed with animals. My girlfriend's obsessed with animals. She would love to do some sort of rescue situation and just care for things and heal things. And I'm not sure what would call it. That's a good question, but it's been all sorts of different thoughts of whether it's a health retreat or just a property where I do all those things, but it's not that's not officially what it's doing. But now it's turned into an idea where I really want just a full spectrum healing place where people can disconnect from phones and social media and have access to. I want to do it somewhere in the mountains of Idaho or Montana where there's access to geothermal water and have all sorts of modern healing modalities as well, infrared sauna, red light therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And it would be awesome to partner with a doctor or something that could do blood work, basic blood work, and supplement for vitamin and mineral deficiencies, serve or have access to wild grown, wild harvested, or grass fed, grass raised food, meat, and local vegetables and fruit and everything on the property where you're getting the healing straight from the place that you're at. And so that's become the dream in my own process of healing. It's just you have 100 different things you can do, but if I feel like if I could just you know unplug for 5 days or a week or longer and just have a complete healing immersion, that'd be a very good kickstart when you can't make the momentum start again, when you need to kick that momentum off. Just having a sanctuary to do that is yeah, it's my dream for people. I want to share that with especially all my family, friends, acquaintances, and people that I know. It's just it seems like the greatest gift you can give to someone.
You met your girlfriend, was it in Africa?
No, so I um was traveling. I met my girlfriend in the town that I grew up in, but we actually basically we met when we were younger, but we basically reconnected when we were 20, just weeks before I moved to Australia.
Oh,
And we kind of carried on the long distance thing for a few months, but it just wasn't sustainable. At that time, I thought I was never coming back to America. I mean, I thought I was never going to set foot in America again for at least 10, 15 years. And so we broke it off and we ended up reconnecting about 6 months before I was in that car accident.
hmm.
And she was in the car accident with me, but we reconnected, got back together. She was in the car accident with me. She broke her neck very badly, had a bad head injury. She wasn't paralyzed, thank God, no permanent brain damage or loss of function or anything like that. But she was in the accident with me, and we've, had the wildest, hardest first 4 years of a relationship you can ever imagine. But uh, I think at this point we've definitely determined we've made it this far. It's probably meant to be.
And how important is it to have a strong woman at your side?
It's honestly, I would be 1/100th of the person I am today without her. It's not even possible to overstate the significance of it. I mean, she's she'll call me out uh, when I'm being weak, and she'll support me when I actually need it. And she always pushes me to do better. She doesn't let me make any excuses of why I can't do something, or she won't accept any less from me than if I was not disabled. I mean, she doesn't, not just for her, I mean, just for us and our relationship and our life. And that forces me and makes me strive to push myself every day. And when I can't, on those days where I have nothing left in the tank and I can't do it for myself, I just don't care. I have zero there. That's the juice that lets me go again, is I can, make that sacrifice for someone else. And that's what I've discovered is, I mean, that's the ultimate hack, if you will, in life is, be willing to sacrifice and suffer and strive for someone else. And you can go a whole lot further than when you're doing it for yourself.
Do you have some sort of website?
I I don't have a website right now. I'm getting one up and going for that's kind of going to be geared towards my writing and my book. The best way to reach me right now is just on Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel devoted to spinal cord injury. Haven't been active on there for the last couple of months just because I was going through kind of a health revamp myself. I just every tiny extra ounce of energy I had was going into getting myself back up to scratch. But YouTube or Instagram are definitely the best places to find me.
And where can people buy your book?
So it will be available on Amazon. It's going to be called The Black House,
Mhm.
and hoping to get it out on Amazon if I'm really ambitious editing, about 6 weeks, uh, depending on the amount of time it takes me. Could be 8 weeks, 8 weeks from now, but it will be available on Amazon. And then my Instagram is Bridgerly Frederick. I'll be posting everything, all the information there.
Let me know when it comes out because I would like to help promote that myself.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that.
But
Thank you.
I am going to put your links in the description to make it easy for folks to find you. And Bridger, thank you so much for sharing your story with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I wish I could get know you better, but hopefully that's something we get to do over the coming years.
All right, we will keep in touch.
Deal.
And, I want to thank all you folks out there as well. If it weren't for you, I just wouldn't be able to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network